Often a privilege in this job to meet so many wonderful people, and particularly when you've admired them yourself, you do become a bit fan-like, because you like them and you think, wow, what are they like? Some people, as I've pointed out to you before, chums, they disappoint. They're not the people that you think they are. The celebrity world is a callous, cruel and cutting world. They're in it for one thing. And then, of course, you meet other people and you think, wow, these people were really nice, And this particular man that I wanted to share with you is a brilliant comedian. His late the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh, absolutely adored the comedy of this man, Mick Miller. Now, in case you don't know him in any part of the world, he is very well known over here in the United Kingdom, appeared on royal variety shows to great success. The reason why I wanted to share it with you today is I've been able now, after a couple of years, to be able to get this particular video back. Things you make sometimes you don't own, this is the way of television. But this particular thing was done, as I say, a couple of years ago when we weren't allowed to be in the same room, remember that? So Mick very kindly gave me a wonderful interview, and his career started out not just appearing in front of royals, but in fact he wanted to be a professional footballer, and that celebrated professional manager footballer himself, Sir Stanley Matthews, features in this particular chat. I hope you enjoy it because it is just a fun canter through a genius of comedy. And apparently the Duke of Edinburgh loved a specific detail of Mick Miller's act. You see, he takes off this wonderful, and you can find it online if you want to watch it, but he takes off this wonderful children's TV presenter stroke radio presenter who has something of a drink problem while working a puppet in front of children. You have to see it to believe it. It is a genius thing in comedy. Mick Miller is a genius of comedy, still working today and still making so many people laugh. What was fascinating, as I say, about him was he sort of had this character where he's got a bald head and long hair at the side. And a fellow comedian, Bernard Manning, said to him one day, Mick, I wouldn't go to Stratford-upon-Avon if I were you. There's lots of lookalikes there. And when you look at him, you do think, yes, you have got a look of William Shakespeare. So without further ado, let's enjoy the wonderful conversation, the humour, and the brilliant story of a very much royal favourite comedian, Mr. Mick Miller. And if you can, chums, please like, comment and share as ever. An absolute pleasure to finally get to have a chat with you. It's strange, isn't it, that we're doing this virtually, because normally we'll be having a gossip here in the studios, of course.
Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it, really? Shame, but it'll come back.
It's a new world, Mick, it's a new world. First of all, can I just say, the other night, a couple of weeks ago now, I was at home and I've never watched Car Share before, and I got the episode where you really cheered me up. First of all, I want to say congratulations on that performance, because here's my theory about comedians, right, Mick? They know how to time a line, and that look and everything was just a perfect performance. Did you love doing it, obviously?
Oh, yeah. Well, Peter, in Car Share and in Phoenix Nights, they were all comics. They were all circuit comics, know.
Yeah.
They do reckon comics make good actors.
I believe they do. I mean, Phoenix Nights, for those that have not seen it, it to me was like, for want of a better word, the wheel tappers come to life again. Is everybody's, we've all met concert secretaries like that, haven't we, and everything is the same. People always said about Colin Crompton, oh, it's not real. You think you want to go, it is real. He's tame.
That's it, Colin. And he used to get in a lot of trouble, Morecambe, he had that thing about Morecambe. He said, Morecambe, he said, they don't bury him, they stand him up in the bus shelters.
Brilliant comedy, though, isn't it? I was lucky enough to meet Colin Crompton. What was he like off camera? Was he a shy man, or how was he as a person?
He was very confident, very confident. He was always smoking. Apparently he used to time his act by how many cigarettes he went through.
Oh, really?
Because if you light a fag, it's usually 15 minutes if you don't really touch it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he could time an hour by 4 fags.
Oh, I see. That's quite clever, actually, though, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
my dad, bless him, he used to love Jimmy James. Do you remember the In the Box
Oh,
sketch?
yes.
And Dad always did, he did, dare I say, a pastiche of that act, for want of a better word, Mick. And he said that he timed everything with the SIG, and when you watch it now, you can see that, can't you?
Well, I reckon I saw an old agent in London, he had his office in Ivory Towers, Park Lane, and he learnt off Lou Grade. And Lou Grade always had the cigar.
Yeah.
And apparently the cigar was thinking time. Because if an actor came in and said, why aren't I doing pantomime in the Palladium?
Yeah.
That 4 seconds gives you thinking time.
Oh, that's quite a clever idea, actually, isn't it? And when you think all those moguls did that.
George Burns, always worked with a cigar.
Yeah.
And Bernard Manning. Bernard used to work with a cigar.
Oh, right. Now, Bernard, to me, like all of you boys of that era, I adored Bernard Manning. People say, oh, he was this, he was that. Funny is my opinion, end of, And when you watch Bernard, I love the way, even in latter period when he was getting a little bit older, he just demolished Mrs. Merton, with 2 or 3 lines, and everybody said, oh, she didn't. You think, no, he was a genius. What was he like to you? What do you remember about Bernard?
He was, well, being a Scouser, he always had the thing about Liverpool and Manchester, but he liked me.
Yeah.
He used to call me Shakespeare. He said, that Mick Miller, there's statues of him all around Stratford.
Brilliant, actually, isn't it? And now that's going to stick in my head, mate. You know what I'm saying?
And also, it was very clever. He went on the night John Lennon got shot, and it's his 80th birthday, isn't it, today?
Yeah.
He walked on stage and he went, well, he wanted peace. He's got it now. Straight off the top of his head.
But you see, I suppose that comes to comedy today. What I like about you is you've transcended, the decades, if you like, and people, what they call the younger generation, love you as much. How have you managed to do that where others haven't, would you say? What is the key to doing that?
Well, I think the look helps a bit.
Yeah.
With the youngsters. And they just like what I do, because I'm not racist. I don't go anywhere dodgy. It's all one-liners. It's all quite clever stuff. So I'm accepted, So I do the Comedy Store. I went up to Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Me and Jimmy Cricket went, and we sold out. Yeah, we did a week up there, and we were just so accepted up there. It was absolutely brilliant, And now I do the Comedy Store, London, Manchester. I've got a new DVD out, which I did in Liverpool at the Laughter House Comedy.
Oh.
So it's an hour and 20 minutes, and that was, I do love the comedy clubs.
Is it true, Mick, that you were booked as a warm-up and then they put you in? How did that come around?
It was Peter Kay. Peter was comparing.
Yeah.
And the producer said to him, we need someone to do 6 minutes in between Penn and Teller and Singing in the Rain, because they had to put the water jets in.
Yeah.
So Peter went, Mick Miller. So they phoned me up and I said, yeah, theatre act only. So I went down and I did it and I just wowed them.
Yeah.
And then we got a phone call a couple of weeks later and said it was that good that they're sticking it in.
Wow.
So that was a great surprise. But the downside was that I didn't do the walk down and I didn't meet the Royals.
Oh,
so that was quite sad.
Yeah. And was that your first time on a Royal Variety? Forgive me if it is not the case, but was that?
Yes, yeah.
But now, as somebody, because you're so established, right, Mick, but when you got that gig, how different is it to do it to that type of audience? Because in some respects, although Peter Kay transcends all of that like you do, but was it a bit different? Was the audience a bit different, do you think?
Not really, because they all want to be there. And it's like 300 quid a ticket.
Yeah.
And they were my age group. They were the older type of people. So I did quite well. I was accepted. A lot of young comics that have done it in the past haven't gone down very well.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But it's not their fault. It's just that the age group that's in there, it's tradition that they always, either go to London in a hotel, go to the Royal, because it goes on for hours and hours and hours. You know, it starts at 7 and finishes about 2 in the morning. You know, I was on with Barry Manilow.
Oh, wow.
I was on with Manilow, and I mean, he did like 4 takes of his song, and then after that, Tony Bennett just come on with piano, bass, and drums, and he went, hit it, and that was it, bang, done.
Do you know, don't you love those? And for you, you know, for our age bracket, if you like, it's just marvellous, isn't it, to be in these people's area, if you like, you know, because it's an odd thing, isn't it, when you work with, I mean, I've been lucky enough to interview both of those people, but they are like superstars, you know, and they come on and they know what they want. I think we British people, we're quite glad if there's a glass of water, you know what I mean? And they've come with the entourage. And you're like, oh,
that's it. Well, Manilow arrived, and he had like the red arrows behind him, you know, in a dart, or the minders.
Yeah.
CeeLo Green, he had about 4 with him.
Yeah.
Miss Schertzinger, she had about 4. There was just me and Steve. And we were in a dressing room with all the comics. So Jason Manford, Greg Davis, Penn and Teller. I'll tell you a funny story about Penn and Teller, you know, because Teller doesn't speak.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah, yes. Yeah.
Not in the act,
you
know. So the dressing room, and they'd put a big bouquet of fruit, you know, in one of those big wicker baskets.
Yeah.
And it was covered in like yellow cellophane, right? So I watched him get up, and he walked over and he opened it, and he picked a bunch of grapes out, and he went down and he started to eat the grapes. Well, I just walked over to this fruit and I went, "Who's messed around with my props?" Well, his face.
Well, you would though, Mick, wouldn't you? You'd go, "Oh my God," because everybody's heightened nerves, aren't they, in that sort of event, you know. I remember the first time we covered the Royal Variety, they said to me, you know, there's no catering or whatever. And these people, I can't say they were Americans, they were appalled because we literally had taken some princess meat-based sandwiches in a bag. You know? And we had a flask and everything. And the crew that were with me were looking at us, "Oh, it's dead common." But you think, well, where are we going to get any food? You know, you're there for hours, as you say. That's you make do with it, don't you? You think, well, you know. And I can't remember who it was. I think it was Celine Dion. I said, "Do you want one?" And she was appalled at what was inside it. Matthews, what's the connection there? Did you work? You know, you were a budding footballer, right?
I was signed by Sir Stanley. He was at Port Vale as manager, Stoke-on-Trent, Port Vale.
Yeah.
And he signed me as a kid. I was 16.
Wow. And
I went to live in Stoke for 4 years as a footballer. But I never grew. I was a goalkeeper, and I was too small. I was like 5'9" at 16, and I was 5'9" at 20, which is too small, really.
Yeah.
So, you know, I didn't make it. But it was a great experience for 4 years.
I was going to say, so Stanley Matthews is massive, wasn't he? I mean, I was lucky enough, again, to meet him. He came to a variety show at Hanley Theatre Royal, actually. He was our surprise guest.
Yeah.
An amazing man, you know, and very humble as well, wasn't he, mate? He didn't really...
Oh, yeah. He was the first... I mean, I was 16, so it would have been 66. And I was on the ground staff, and part of the job was every Monday, all he ever had to eat was carrot juice.
Oh.
And he had his own machine, which was, you know, a liquidizer.
Yeah.
Well... no one had ever seen one of them, you know. We would have to go and on a Monday, we'd have to go and he'd have about 4 pints of carrot juice, and that was it. Very fit man.
Wow. Why carrot juice? Yeah. Did you ever find that out? What was the key to that?
I've no idea. It was just he was a fitness fanatic.
Yeah.
You know, he was.
So how did you bounce then? How hard was it, Mick, for you to bounce from your football dream to comedy? How did that evolve? Was that... You know,
well, it broke my heart. Obviously, when you don't get told at 20 that you're on the scrappy.
Yeah.
It broke my heart.
Yeah.
I went back to Liverpool, and I got a job on the railway, which was, you know, you had to be in the union then, you know, the NUR, which stands for no use rushing. And I was just hated every minute of it. And then my cousin was a bluecoat at Pontins, and she said, "Well, why don't you come down and do the sports?" So that's what I did. Sport in Camber Sands down south.
Wow, yeah, where they filmed Carry On Up the Khyber or whatever, yeah.
Oh, anything with a beach in it,
Yeah.
and sand dunes is Camber Sands.
And did you
I
like
think,
being a Pontins blue coat then? Because they were like...
It was great.
You know, I mean, everybody remembers Butlin red coats, but I do remember Pontins because, you know, we've all auditioned for those. And it was a big... It's hard to say how big they were, because Fred Pontin was as famous as Billy Butlin, I thought, you know.
Oh yeah, well the famous advert, wasn't it? You know, book early.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he had Continental, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, Continental.
And
but it was a great experience. Great experience.
How did that? So did you get up on stage? How did that evolve to you becoming and thinking, I've got a comedy line here? You know.
Well, part of the job was doing the bingo.
Yeah.
Getting involved in the Blue Coat show. So, you know, I had a few gags and then I just kept working at it. So I ended up with a 20-minute act. And then I went back the next year and worked on it again. So I got a 40-minute act.
Wow.
And after 2 years, I went on the road because all the big clubs were about then.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and, you know, you'd be supporting the Four Tops, people like that. It was absolutely incredible, all these big cabaret clubs all around the country. You know, Scampi in the basket. That was a thing. Remember that?
Well, do you know what?
Have you got a vegetarian choice? Eat the basket.
Any vegetarians with us? No, they haven't got their energy to put their hand up, have they? Oh, broccoli. I didn't get to the top of the food chain to eat carrots. Hey, it was back to the 70s. I've been watching you girls dancing around your handbags. Hey, keep your eye on that. My father actually knew the day he was going to die. The judge told him. He was in America and they were putting him in an electric chair. The warden said, "Have you got a last request?" He said, "Hold my hand." And every year on his anniversary, we put a little wreath by the fuse box. You know, never trust an electrician with no eyebrows. Now, I don't like flying. No.
The thing is, you're right. I mean, I was lucky enough again to know the lovely man called Alan Clegg, who used to be the general manager of the Batley Variety Club in their heyday, you know, when they had all these big stars. And he was a lovely man. And he also, there was another guy that I met who ran the Wakefield Theatre Club. And these were very plush venues in their day, weren't they, Mick? You know, they were.
Oh, they were fabulous,
Well,
I did Batley quite a few times, but I did it with Chuck Berry.
Wow. What was Chuck Berry like?
And he was incredible. He sat at the side of the stage and watched me because we did 2 shows, Sunday afternoon and Sunday night.
Yeah.
And when it came off, he went, "Hey, man, I dig you. Yeah, funny man." So I was like... And then I did Wakefield.
Wakefield. What was that like, Wakefield?
Wakefield, they were all very similar. They always had a big band.
Yeah.
Started on Sunday night, finished on Saturday. Obviously, it was cheaper Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah. And then it'd be, you know, it'd go up in price for the weekend. I did that with, quite a few people. I did that with the Drifters, Frankie Vaughan.
Lovely, yeah.
I'll never forget Frankie Vaughan because I'd never met him and I'm from Liverpool.
Yeah.
And I'd just come off and it was the dinner. I had the dinner suit on and the black dicky bow. And as I'm walking past the stage and down the side of the corridor, there was banging on the backstage door.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I opened it and there's Frankie Vaughan and his wife. And he went, "Hello." And I said, "Hello." So come in. And he just said to me, "Any chance of getting a cup of coffee?" And I went, Yes. I've just come off stage. So I went out and I got him 2 cups of coffee and took him to the dressing room. Anyway, he come back to the dressing room. He went, Mick, I'm so sorry. I didn't realise you were... I thought you were the doorman.
That's what I loved about the comedians and Wheel Tappers. It really encapsulated that era for those that remember it, you know. And I mean, I remember Wakefield Theatre Club, Mick, you know, and just before she exploded again, Tina Turner was on, and it was really cheap.
Yeah.
You know, nobody cared really. I don't want to sound awful. And then Dusty Springfield turned up, and you imagine Dusty Springfield going around Wakefield Market buying the smalls. You think, what does she do all day?
Well, Shelley Bassey, you know, Tom Jones, they all did Batley.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I tell you who else, Fleetwood Mac did a week there.
Wow, yeah.
I did it with a guy called Johnny Tillotson. He had one hit, Poetry in Motion.
We all know
Johnny
that song.
Tillotson.
Yeah, we all know that song.
Yeah.
And then, so how did you end up, you know, because then you bounced into the Comedians, which, to give people a bit of background, the Comedians was a colossal hit for the genius producer that was Johnny Hamp. And actually, again, I've been lucky enough to interview Johnny, and he was his idea was very clever to just get people to do their act and then pick the best, you know, jokes out of that and link it all very cleverly together. But I mean, I remember watching that, and some of it, obviously I was very young and the jokes went over my head, you know, didn't get it. Now I think it's hilarious, Mick, you know. But how did you get it? Because it was such a big show to be on, wasn't it?
Well, it it started in '72, and that's when the big lads were, you know, Bernard Manning, Frank Carson, Norman Collier was on it.
Yeah.
Who else? Ken Goodwin.
Yeah, I loved Ken.
All those guys, George Roper, Colin Crompton.
Oh, yeah.
And then they bought it back in 1979-80.
Yeah.
And they added three new ones, which was me, Stan Bourman and Roy Walker. And then that run for another 4 years.
Yeah.
But the good thing about the Comedians was, because it was on about 6 o'clock on a Saturday night.
That's right, yeah.
And everyone would watch it before they went out to the clubs and the pubs. So they'd all remember one gag.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was how it did. I mean, it did 6 months at the Palladium.
Yeah.
Comedian show. Incredible.
Yeah, and when you think about it, because it did the 6 months at the Palladium and then massive sellout at the North Pier in Blackpool. And what I found fascinating, Mick, was that, you know, I remember Johnny saying people in the Palladium were worried that it wouldn't work because, you know, it's seen as a very northern thing for comedians to come on. But, of course, it made so much money. And I, you know, as somebody who makes people laugh yourself, who were the people that made you laugh growing up? Who was the ones that you went, I like him and I like that? Who opened that gift of laughter for you?
I liked slapstick, really. I loved W.C. Fields.
Yeah.
Groucho Marx. Max Wall, obviously, with the hair.
Yeah.
Mind you, his was a wig. This is real. Bob Monkhouse. Les Dawson. You know, Les became a great friend.
Yeah. Lovely
So I
man.
spent a lot of time with Les.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I like anything that's funny, really. You know, anything that I think's funny. I could never get on with people like Arthur Askey. That wasn't my thing, you know. Thinking about a bee.
It's funny, actually, you say that, because I watched him in a film the other day, and I thought, you're not a comedian to me, you're a comic actor, you know? He's been a little bit of a busybody going around. But I never really got, as you rightly say, the bit where he's funny. I thought, good in films, probably good in farce and stage, but to stand up is a different thing, isn't it? And just be funny.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think the king was Doddy. You know, Ken was the king.
Yeah.
You know, I was at his 90th birthday party and I got up and did 10 minutes for him. He was a lovely, lovely man.
Did you?
I always said to the young comics, you know, before we lose him, go and see him.
Yeah.
Because you'll be amazed, 3 hours.
Yeah, and I was going to say, and also not 3 hours ever dipping. It was just constantly funny. I want to touch on also, one of your big early breaks was in a thing that not many people, we don't see this now, Play for Today, which, again, colossal big TV show, isn't it, that, at the time?
Well, it was Liverpool. Alan Bleasdale, who was a great writer.
Yeah.
And he wrote Scully's New Year's Eve Party. And once again, comic,
Yeah.
He wanted a comic in there. Stan Stennett, he was in it.
Oh, lovely.
Oh, there was Avis Bunich. She's in a lot of stuff. Avis Bunich. She was in it. And you know the lady that's on Benidorm?
Oh,
You know, the Scottish pervert?
yes, I know. Yeah.
His wife.
Yeah.
His wife. She was in it.
Yeah.
She was a young girl then, yeah. That was great. We were in Birmingham we did it at Pebble Mill. And we were there for a month. And I loved every minute of it. You know, it was great. It was new experience for me.
I was going to say, Mick, because when those sort of jobs came to you at that period in the 70s and stuff, telly was, it's hard to imagine this now, but telly was massive. And Play for Today's, although again I was a little bit too young to understand them, people went to school and to work and talked about them the day after, didn't they? They were that powerful, the dramas that they were making, you know.
Yeah. Well, I had an agent at the time who was just wanted... he didn't want to do anything with my career. He just wanted to get the money in, you know. And I learned later when I left him that Peter Kay had a part for me in Phoenix Nights, and he turned it down.
Wow. And
then last year I met a guy that was a producer of Brookside.
Yeah.
And he said, we had a part for you in that, but your agent said you were too busy. So...
Do you know... But it's so true. I mean, the beauty about the world we're living in now, Mick, is that people can get you direct. You know, I think this is totally different because I've been lucky enough to interview many comedians and they've all had stories about, oh, you know, I didn't know about this, or somebody wanted me to be a binman in Emmerdale or whatever, you know what I mean? And you can see that they would have fitted that role perfectly. But because the agent doesn't want to take that level of money, it's very short-sighted because it opens up another career for you, doesn't it? As an actor, or you know, you have to keep evolving. You know, yeah.
I'm sure it's happened to a lot of people in the past.
I'm not a fan.
But also, I did New Faces. I won that in '76. Only one episode, you know. Yeah. But that made a few stars.
Yeah. Who was on your panel, though, Mick? Who was the panel when you were on New Faces?
Oh, it was Mickey Most.
Oh, yeah.
Tony Hatch.
Yes, lovely, Tony.
Clifford Davis. I think it was Clifford Davis.
Yeah, he was an agent, wasn't he, I think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's all the three I can remember.
And was it nerve-wracking, Mick? Because, again, that was in my region. I don't know how it went in other regions, but that was on a Sunday afternoon for us. And I distinctly remember, I wrote off to New Faces, even though I was way too young to get on it, but, you know, you wrote off to everything. And I just thought it sounded so glamorous, because I remember when Marty Kane was on, and she was funny, glamorous, and from our neck of the woods. So I thought, oh, it is open to us then. Do you know what I mean? It was a bit like that, wasn't it? What was your experience when you got there and everything? Can you remember?
It was great. It was obviously the first television ever done.
Yeah.
It was absolutely incredible. Yeah, you know, and to do 2.5 minutes, I think it was.
Yeah.
That's all you had to do. So I got 2 hits. You know, I got the show I won, and the final.
Yeah.
Where I didn't come anywhere really. I'm just trying to think of one at the final. Might have been Jim Davidson.
All right, yeah.
Because Joe Pasquale was New Faces.
Yeah, yeah. In the latter one, wasn't he? I think he was in the revised one, you know, the 80s version.
Yeah, when they put it in the theatre.
Yeah.
They put it in the theatre.
And then, but do you know what I always find, and it's interesting this, Mick, when you mentioned about the panel, they were a lot more esteemed in many respects because Mickey Most had been an act and was a fabulous record producer. Tony Hatch, brilliant songwriter, record producer. And, you know, so you didn't, I guess you didn't mind the criticism because they were at least experienced. You know, they'd gone through a lot.
Yeah.
Today, you kind of think, well, what have you done? You know. But overall, you loved New Faces. And did that open a lot of doors for you, Mick? Did you get work from that? Yeah. What was the most significant thing from that?
Yeah, your money went up a little bit, and of course you got the clubs and a bit more respect. You know, before you hit any television, you know, you get you get in there, you're doing 2 spots, and you get the pokey finger.
Yeah.
You don't like any blue stuff here. We've had them all here. You know, we paid Bob Bunkhouse off.
It's really nerve.
I better leave now.
Yeah. It's terrible, isn't it, the way they say things like, you know, as well when you go to these places, and we've all had them, where they say, this is the dressing room, and you think, no, this is the gents. You know, but that's okay, right, you know.
Why's my dressing room got 6 sinks in it?
He's spot on though, Mick. I've got to mention also as well, bringing it back up to date, you were fabulous on The Last Laugh in Vegas. And I love that show. And I thought I kind of felt, as somebody who makes TV now, that they kind of butchered the idea a bit, you know, because what the people of my age bracket and older wanted was to see more of the performances, you know, and they seemed to focus on the backstabbing and the bed scenarios or whatever, you know what I mean? I think we're not bothered about that, you know.
Yeah.
Give us this, you know what I mean? So how did that come around, and what was your, you know, memories of that?
We just got a phone call asking, you know, would we be interested? And then they came and watched me work.
Yeah.
And then they came to the house and, you know, see what family life you've got and all that. And that's it. We got a phone call and, yeah, you've got it.
Wow.
So, and they filmed all that in the house, but it never went out.
Yeah.
You know, telling me that I've got it.
Yeah.
And then it was that was great. Then I didn't know who else was on. You know, you try to find out, but you never know until we got to that place in Wigan. Wigan, yeah.
The glamorous location, yeah. It's kind of, you know, because I thought that was kind of cruel, because poor Bobby Crush, I think they played on his vulnerability, shall we say. It was a little cruel, I thought, you know, because they always like to cast people, don't they, as he's going to be this, he's the baddie, he's the one that's going to burst into tears. And you think, oh, just, you know, it's a bit... I don't know. I think I mean, for me, watching you on that show would be a masterclass in comedy, seriously. To go on to the audience in Vegas, were you nervous at all?
I was, but with me doing the cruise ships, I worked to Americans.
Yes.
So I knew how to do it. You know, you've got to, like, explain it. You've got to, you know, set the seed for them and then hit them with the gag.
Yeah.
Once you've... you know, I did a thing where, you know, you say standing in line, we stay standing in a queue.
Yeah.
Then I've set a gag up, you know, so they know what a queue is now.
Yeah.
So,
would you want to go back there again? Because do you remember famously, the lovely Bernard did a documentary, didn't he, of him being at the hotel, and I remember that so vividly as a child, because I was so nervous for him watching it, Mick. You know, I remember thinking, oh no, because when you do it, you think, oh no. And looking back, I didn't realise that Johnny Hamp had got Joan Rivers to give him some advice. You know, when you think about that.
Yes, yeah.
Big names at the time. Is it different now? Do you think they understand us more? Because I think Bernard struggled a little bit on that.
Well, they get a lot of our TV, you know.
Yeah.
You know, BBC America.
Yes.
So they do. I mean, they're into. Well, they keep making them, don't they? Now they've just made Shameless, haven't they?
Yeah.
American Shameless.
Yeah.
The Office. You know, they get it. They get it. You know.
Yeah.
And I loved it. Mind you, I did do 2 spots, but they only showed the one.
That's what I mean. That's what I think. That's what we don't realise in TV. If you're not, you know, if you don't understand how it works, you know, you look at something like Sue Pollard, consummate professional, knows exactly how to do it, and there's no nerves there. And I think, again, it was seemingly with Cannon and Ball, who were very funny to me, but they played more on their backstory. I thought, just let them go on and be funny. That's what they do. That's their job. You know?
Sue, you know, a funny story about Sue. Did you see that bit where she's been sent out because we had no kettle in the house, so she's sent out to get drinks. So, you know, got the list, and she's pulled into this drive-through thing, and on the wall, and she's shouting all these things. You know, 2 flat whites, cappuccino, 2 cups of tea. And Kenny sat next to her, and he said, "You're talking to the fuse box, you silly cow."
New DVD out now, and you can stream it. How do you? For those that are not across that and they want to watch you in your new DVDs, how does that work?
Yeah, it's www.stream15.com, and you just get on there and click in Mick Miller, and you can download it. It's an hour and 20 minutes. So I think it's quite cheap. It's about £6, I think, something like that.
Brilliant, though, isn't it? I mean, now that do you miss the days of selling your own DVDs at your gigs, though, where, you know, again, there's more personal approach, isn't there? They come up and they talk to you and you sign it and you go, you know, it's a bit like that.
Well, I still do Butlins.
Yeah.
You know, 90s weekends, 80s weekends.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can get a queue around the place on a Sunday afternoon. And it's great, you know, selfies and all the bit.
Yeah.
Of course, they've been cancelled till next year. So I'm going to miss them.
Yeah.
And all the cruises, you know.
Do you know, I mean, just touching on that now, because obviously, you know, this goes out a little bit later, but I mean, do you think we'll get back to a normality of the, I mean, how long do you reckon as somebody as a performer it would take? Because I think people are still nervous to go into a venue, you know, really. They want to, but there's that element of, ooh, how safe is it, you know?
Yeah. Well, Warner's, they're open, the hotels, which are very, very good.
Yeah.
And I did one of them, and they've all set up outdoor venues, you know, with marquees and social distancing, and doing 2 shows. You know, instead of one, you'll do 2. So instead of having a room of 300 people, you'll have 2 shows of 150, you know, and it works.
Yeah.
And people can still have a holiday.
Finally, I'm going to touch on a place that you're phenomenally big in, and I know you've got a real affection for it. Blackpool. What is it about Blackpool? You know, I remember the lovely Roy Chubby Brown saying that he couldn't quite believe he was sat in a cafe having a coffee and his name went past on a tram. And to him, that was his palladium, you know. What is it about Blackpool, do you think, that makes it such a mecca for comedy? And it has done for decades, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's just, I think it's a northern thing. You know, the 3 piers, shows everywhere. Yeah. You know, I mean, in fact, Roy, he's on North Pier now. He's doing social distancing. Yeah. He's on the end of North Pier. He's doing quite well. But otherwise, there's not a lot going on, you know.
Yeah.
I did... I've done 20 seasons over the years, you know.
Wow.
All the piers.
I was going to say, what's your favourite venue, Mick? Because I think there's something quite special about being on a pier theatre, like, you know, when you remember the Regal in on the South Pier and then the Central Pier with Peter Webster. I used to love Peter Webster's talent shows when I was a kid because he just made it, again, you know, you wouldn't get this today, but the prizes were rubbish, but it didn't matter, you know, because you were just such good fun. You know, when you look at all those wonderful venues, like there used to be the ABC and all of those things, sadly they've all gone, but what was your first venue there? Can you remember?
Well, the first venue was for Peter Webster.
Wow.
On South Pier.
Yeah.
And I was with the Grumbleweeds.
Lovely.
Yeah. And Neville King.
Oh,
Neville
the
King
vent.
himself.
Yes. I loved him, didn't you? Oh, gosh. He was the one that stuffed it in a suitcase, wasn't it? And he would carry on.
I'm not going in the case. Yeah.
You know,
Well, Peter was... he phoned up Johnny Hamp because he's a mate of Johnny's.
Yeah.
And that's how Johnny came to see me for the comedians.
Wow, that's great, isn't it? What was Peter Webster like as a person? Because to a lot of generations now, they don't remember him, but he was a huge impresario in that era and in that period, wasn't he? You know, I mean... I was lucky enough to meet him very briefly because Dad knew him. But I remember he was talking to Dad about Al Reed and how he could be a little tricky, shall we say, Mick? Just a little bit above his station, you know. What was he like?
He was the promoter as well.
Yeah.
You know, he was the promoter. So he had both piers. He had South and Central.
Yeah.
You know, he'd have the old-time music all on Central, then he'd have the variety on... He was telling me about...
Frank Randall.
Frank Randall.
Yes.
Frank Randall. So Peter told me a story. He had Frank Randall, right, in 1950 on the South Pier, right, and there were 3 shows a day, £10,000 a week.
Wow.
In 1950.
Yeah.
Can you believe that?
Oh, you know...
And the rider clause... was a case of Guinness.
Lovely, though, isn't it? Lovely. Because I remember a story about Peter, and again, you know, you wonder how true it is, and I'm sure Con and Decker will back this up, but The Bachelors had got to #1. But they'd signed a contract like a year before, you know, and they wanted to kind of get out of this contract because consequently they could make more money now. They were big pop stars.
Yeah,
but Peter held them to it for the season, and you think, what a clever man, you know, to foresee that they could be that big, you know, and then you get them nailed for the period. Is there any, what's the worst bit about appearing on a pier for you, though? Do you get when the tide's up? Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, well, the end of September was start of October.
Yeah.
And we had the guys on the prom, you know, with the Landaus with the horses. And I'm walking off one night, and it's sleeting, it's snowing, and all of it. South Pier, this was. I'm walking off, and there was a little guy there in his carriage. Johnny Gilmore, he was called, Johnny Gallimore, and he was sat there with his pork pie hat on. And he went, "It's the many in, Mick." I said, "There's about 300. He said, "You're in a funny old game, son." He said, "Show business." He said that at least if no one gets in the back here, I can eat the horse.
Earlier on about venues. One great venue that I really like in Blackpool is Viva. I know you've been on there. Does that evoke that sort of Batley Variety Club thing to you? Because it does to me.
Yeah, I don't think it's that much of a good room for comedy. It's a bit sprawled out.
Yeah.
I've done 3 shows there, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big old room, you know.
Yeah.
It's a big old room. But it's nice to see one. Well, there's a few new hotels going up, and I think they're going to put showrooms in, you know, so that should be good.
Yeah, that could all come back, mate, couldn't it? I've seen you many times, mate. You're a very, very funny man. And what's nice is that when you meet someone, even though we're virtually meeting, you're as nice as you are funny on stage. Some comedians, we've all met them, they are quite depressive, aren't they? You know, they're not the character, and you think, oh dear, you know. But I think do you write all your own material, Mick? Do you get it all down yourself?
Yeah, I get all ideas, and I might hear someone say something, and I'll say, oh, well, I could twist that.
Yeah.
And find something different. Yeah.
So do you
just look at life and
I was going to say
traveling, all the traveling I do.
Yeah. Do you look at every day? Are your ears like antennae listening for something? Oh, that's quite funny. Or you see a sign and write that down or something. You know what I mean?
I pick things up. The cruises, I've picked so much up on the cruises. One guy, you know, because these cruise ships now, they're like cities, they're mega.
Yeah.
And I heard this guy talking at the bar, and he said, "Our corridor is longer than the ship." Here's one. We were in Norfolk last year, and the Red Arrows were doing a thing, and we were on the prom, crowds and crowds of people, and the Red Arrows did the thing, and everyone's walking away, and a guy said, "What did you think of him?" He said, "Well, I didn't think much of him." He said, "They did the display." He said, "Then they just flew off."
It's just brilliant, isn't it? I just always find these, as you say, the bits of absurdity, you know, like especially when you're into. I was interviewing a while back at the very posh place, the V&A, with Michael Crawford of Phantom, right? And the woman, she's waiting afterwards for him to sign a book, and she said, "Mick, is he wearing the mask or what?"
Oh dear!
Clearly not, but you know, it's like, oh, okay, you know. And I think people for comedy, it's gold for comedians, isn't it? Like you, because you just have to listen into conversations, and you know, you get them, and you think, oh, this is what people say now. This is how it is, you know. So, where are you? Where can we next see you live, Mick? When you're popping up next?
Well, no television in the can at the moment. I don't know. Once we start again, I've got a few little theatres. Chorley, the Chorley Theatre. When we can get back to it, you know. When we can get back to it.
Wolfer's Comedy Club, didn't you, recently? Was that in Lytham?
In Lytham.
Yeah. I mean, you know, good reports about that. It was...
Domino's Pizza, Carl speaking. How can I help you? I said, well, have a guess, Carl. said, have you got a radiator cap for a 1979 I'm in the queue the other day at motorway services, and you know the way these kids now, you know, have you seen the way they wear the jeans? You know, round their ass, like that. So I'm stood next to two of them. I said, you must be pleased with all that weight you've lost. I started in this game in a circus. Now, I didn't do an act, but they kept me on for 8 years. I was the only one that could get the tent in the bag.
You're still incredibly funny and people absolutely adore you. Mick Miller, can I thank you so much for being my guest today? It's been an absolute thrill. Thank you so much.
Neil, my pleasure. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Take care, love. Bye-bye.
Bye.